So we can start now, sir?
Yes, Narinji, let others join later, but let's start in time.
Wonderful. So we'll get started. All right. Good evening to everyone joining us from India, and good morning to those tuning in from the US. I am Naveen Pathak, US head at Entry USA, and I want to thank you all for taking the time for joining this important session today. First of all, at Entry USA, our mission is very simple to making it easy for Indian companies to establish and expand business in the US. So primarily, we provide assistance with warehousing, with U.S. customs, with transportation, with business setup, with sales. And as a matter of fact, on 16th May, we are launching US-India Collaborative Corridor. It's a physical space, essentially. If any of you traveling from India to the US, and in New Jersey, if you are here by chance, New York tri-state area, and you want to meet your clients, you're more than welcome to use our center at no cost to the FIOS members. You can bring your stuff, you can bring your buyers, you can showcase at your convenience, and this center will be open to welcome you. So now getting back to today's webinar, so it is impact of US tariffs. It is at a very crucial time. As you all may know that US administration has recently proposed a fresh wave of tariffs on multiple countries with minimum rates starting at 10%. But there is a currently 90-day pause in place, but there's widespread concern, especially among Indian exporters like yourself, about what's coming next. We all are figuring it out. So the US is one of India's largest trading partner. We are very well aware. In 2024 alone, India exported over $78 billion worth of goods to the US. Now, that number reflects both the opportunity and the risk for companies already established in the US market, and for those planning to expand. This tariff situation has created a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. So in our conversation with Mr. Krishnan, who is the Joint Director General at FIO, we recognize the need or the urgent need to decode what's happening and what it means for Indian exporters and how we can respond strategically. So, thanks to our long-standing relationship with GDLSK, one of the most respected trade and customs law firms in the US, so we brought together a panel of experts to break things down in practical and straightforward way. So, this webinar is a collaborative effort between Entry USA, GDLSK, and FIO. And our goal here today is twofold. Is first of all is to help Indian exporters understand the evolving US tariff landscape, and also to explore creative, legal, and actionable strategies to reduce cost and maintain market access. So, in the session today, in the webinar today, we'll be holding a Q&A session for all of you to ask your questions, but that will happen at the end of the presentation. So, you are, free to type in your question in the chat box at any time during the session so that you don't forget what you want to ask, and we'll address those one by one during the closing segment. Now, let me, I want to introduce all the speakers, so I'll do that. First of all, we have Mr. Manish Kolhadi, who is a consul trade at the Indian consulate in New York, and is a very seasonal global trade consultant, not consultant, I will say, expert, because he is a consul trade with extensive experience helping Indian companies navigate US compliance logistics because of his background. Mr. Kuladi currently is not joined the webinar, but he will be coming in shortly after a little bit. And next in line is Mr. Dharmendra Chaudhary. He's a former Indian trade attaché in Washington, D.C. with deep insights into US trade relations and policy. And he is a partner with GDLSK. And Mr. Ned Marsh, who is a partner at GDLSK and one of the top legal experts in US customs, import regulations, and international trade. And finally, Ms. Charlene Riley from JW Allen, who brings practical experience advising businesses on tariffs classifications, product origin, and duty saving mechanisms. Now, each speaker brings a unique perspective. And by the end of this session, I'm very confident you'll leave with more clarity and stronger action plan. Remember, it's a very strong action plan. Now, before we get started with the session, I would like to invite Shri Unnikrishnan who is a Joint Director General at FIO, to introduce himself and offer his opening remarks. So, Mr. Unnikrishnan, sir, the mic is all yours.
Shri Naveen Pathak, CEO of Entry USA, Mr. Dharmendra Chaudhary, GDLSK, Denmark partner GDLSK, and Ms. Charlie, JWLN, and all my exporters from India. Good evening to all, and good morning to all the panelists present here. It's very immense pleasure for me to welcome all of you today to this important topic, impact of US tariff and the US business expansion. I extend a warm greeting to all the participants here and also trade experts who have joined here from US. We have with us very experienced and on-ground handling professionals in trade who expected to give us inputs and help us in develop various strategies as Mr. Naveen has already informed you. At the outset, I would like to thank Mr. Naveen uh, for coming forward and suggesting timely and very significant subjects. The United States continues to be India's largest export destination, and any shift in trade policies or tariff structures or economic expansion plans have direct impact on India's business. The day President Donald Trump declared as Liberation Day, many of us thought that the world economy is headed towards a massive setback and market meltdown, but it's not happened as expected. Surprisingly, most of the nations rushed for negotiations, and we have seen that countries, including UK, now UK is the first country to sign agreement on mutual concessional tariff. Mr. Trump announced the reciprocal tariff, as Mr. Naveen mentioned, that some 180 countries. On April 9, he also declared a 90-day pause on this tariff for all countries except China. Since then, he has raised tariff on Chinese imports almost 145%. As per news, and the Chinese have retaliated with 125% tariff on imports from US. However, understanding the strong risk for America as well as China to be on the losing side, further both the countries agreed to reduce tariff now. As far as India is concerned, we have tremendous opportunities, as mentioned earlier. And there are a lot of emerging opportunities like China's against anti-China sentiments or China plus one strategies, uh, which will help many of the buyers from US is directly looking for various strategies to diversify the market other than China. However, all of us know that we as India is concerned, we should, as of now, we could not exploit this opportunity due to various reasons. But one of the biggest challenges pointed out by the various investors and the buyers across US is the efficiency in supply chain, which I'm sure that now it has progressed extremely well. Now, I think even though we are to do more, but it's happening. And as we have invited Mr. Naveen to and his team to give some inputs on what is happening and suggesting us various strategies suitable for US market, which I'm sure that help us to sail through these issues. We should now look at the latest development of US and China as they agreed for the deal. You are also aware that government of India is working very closely with US, and we are also expecting some bilateral trade agreements as 90 days window will be closing July first week, I understood. And we understood that our commerce minister will be in US in the next week, and we are hoping that an early deal or agreement in this tariff-related issues. However, it looks like a big challenge ahead several key sectors which um, India is having higher import tariff and reciprocal tariff on this area unless we reduce substantially. It's maybe a big challenge. Meantime, according to various reports, US firms are actively looking for diversifying their sourcing strategies as a geopolitical imperative. And in this context, India is emerging as a strong and viable alternative in sectors, especially on pharma, electronics, engineering, textiles, leather, toys, and food, etc. These US tariff actions put uncertainty in export planning, contracting, etc., due to unpredictability in policy shifts and disruption in global supply chains. With the global trade needs more predictable and transparent trade environment. The uncertainty become new normal, and hence we should learn how to navigate through. As apex body representing Indian exporters, FEW is actively working with the government and industry to monitor trade policy changes, provide real-time advisory support to the exporters as well as the government agencies, and also helping industries to gain greater market access and especially regulatory alignment as well as standards of various countries how to align with Indian exporters' products and services. By conclude, let us stay proactive, innovative, and collaborative our approach. You have the capacity and resilience not only to just withstand this global turbulence, but also lead and thrive. Um, we have already got the introduction of experts speaking on the subjects. Um, as Mr. Musk, we've seen that in behind there's a huge volume of book which shows how complicated the US tariff regime or custom regime is there. So we hope that there are a lot of buzzwords being speaking because we had about custom 101 and America First policy, um, and steel and aluminum tariff, reciprocal tariff. So we would like to have much more detail on that, so that we'll also have some strategy in place to understand this subject and take it forward and look forward for an engaging discussion and actionable outcome from today's webinar. Thank you all and Jai Hind. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Perry.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you for giving the insight into how India is looking at the current state of tariffs. So now let's begin with this session with our subject matter experts. I would like to first invite the first set of speakers, Mr. Dharmendra Chaudhary and Mr. Ned Marsh, to introduce themselves, and they will jointly leading the first part of today's presentation. So over to you, Dharmendra and Ned. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, it's a pleasure speaking to such a informed set of stakeholders. It's true, based on Mr. Unnikrishnan's remarks, that there is all around panic. But this is the time to strategize and to put in place mechanisms which people never thought of previously or did not act upon, at least. So when I joined, to introduce myself, I was served in Indian Customs for 13 years. When I resigned in 2006, I was serving as an additional commissioner of customs in India. So I have experience on that side. Then I came to US, and for last 17 years, I have been practicing international trade and customs, doing a lot of anti-dumping, countervailing duty cases, including representing Indian exporters. Even last week, we obtained 0% anti-dumping duty, no dumping findings on ceramic tile exporters from India. So we are extensively doing a lot of matters in India, and we are wedded to that market. When I was in India at that time, and even globally, the duty rates were cascading down. Before my eyes, I saw duties from 3 digits to 2 digits to low 2 digits. Even in US, the average tariff rate was 3.45% recently up until now. But all of a sudden in 2025, you have seen not only duties going up, but a variety of duties and a lot of interactive duties it's very hard to even keep our heads wrapped around. So I would like Ned to introduce himself, and then Ned and I will be going over some of the slides, and we will giving you an overview of what is happening in US, how India can leverage from the situation. Uh, Overall, China is being displaced from the US market, and the question is who will replace China in a significant way. I would like Ned to introduce himself now.
Yep. Yep.
Ned.
Hi, I'm Ned Marshak. I've been practicing U.S. Customs and Trade Law since 1975, and I realize that's 50 years. I started my career working at the U.S. Customs Service in Washington, D.C. There I was classifying toys and games, and since then I've been in private practice representing foreign manufacturers and importers from all over the world. And from 1975 through 2024, things were about the same. There was a little blip in 2016 when President Trump in his first administration sets the duty to 301 duty on Chinese goods and really picked on China. 2025, the world has changed. And I think what we'd like to do is to get right into our PowerPoint presentation. We'll start with just some background, Customs 101, give you background on what tariffs and duty are, give you 2 seconds of history. Then Dharmendra will go through what the tariff rates are now. We have the reciprocal tariffs, we have auto tariffs, we have steel tariffs, we have aluminum tariffs. And depending upon what category you fall in, you could have a rate of 10% or 25% or 0, or through the moon if things change in July. And then I'll come back after Dharmendra's finished, and I'll talk about duty saving opportunities for you and for your importers. So Dharmendra, get the PowerPoint up and we'll start.
Yeah, I'm going to share the PowerPoint presentation now. Ned, can you see? Just making sure that it is visible. 1 second.
Not yet. Here we go. Okay,
Can you
go
see
to
now?
beginning.
Yeah. So yeah, let's start from here.
Okay, this is our agenda. We're not going to spend an incredible amount of time on each subject because we could go for hours and hours, but let's start with Customs 101. And this slide really just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, some of the terminology, why it's important, and who's responsible. Everything that comes into the United States, it has to be declared to customs at time of entry. Who's responsible for paying duty? And duties are tariffs. It's the importer of record. One entity will be designated importer of record. It could be the importer in the United States, your buyer. It could be a seller. It could be an agent. But that entity is solely responsible to pay duty to U.S. Customs. You deposit duty at time of entry. Customs normally will liquidate the entries, make a final determination of duty due 314 days after entry. You have to post a bond as security when you bring merchandise in. You work with a surety company. Many times the surety company will require collateral, especially if a foreign exporter is the importer of record. And you have to exercise reasonable care. You don't necessarily have to get it 100% right, but you have to use reasonable care. You have to work with your broker, your customs broker, to classify the merchandise correctly, to value the merchandise correctly, to determine the origin of the merchandise correctly. If your broker has questions, your broker will ask a lawyer. If it gets complicated, that's us. So what's duty? What are tariffs? Duty that you pay is the function of 3 variables. You have classification, you have value, and you have country of origin. Classification, every product imported into the United States is classified in one of 10,000 HT harmonized tariff schedule provisions. You have to select the correct provision, and each provision has a particular duty rate. We're now going to be, for many years, the India rates were zero. We're now talking about 10% for a wide variety of products, but not everything. And then 25% for automobile derivatives, steel derivatives, aluminum derivatives, and there are going to be other products on that list. So you determine the classification, then you determine the value. So the duty rate will be an ad valorem rate, let's say 10%, and the 10% is based on the classification, and then it's based on the value. Let's say the value is $100, and that's normally the price paid by the buyer to the seller, but there are ways of reducing that, which we'll talk about later. And then we talk about origin. Origin also is critical for what the duty is going to be, especially with the possibility that because of the reciprocal tariffs, there'll be different rates for different countries. Right now, there are different rates for Chinese products and Indian products. But if you go on to what was first proposed on Liberation Day before everything went down to 10%, every country had its own rate. And origin depends on what is the origin of the product, where you have parts and components coming in from different countries. So that's the basics. Basic Customs 101, tariffs equal duty. Let's go on to the next. Okay. This is what we had in the past, and we have this major change. For the past, after the Second World War, since 1948, with GATT 1948, we had the world getting together, and the economic sense was we're going to reduce duties all over the world. We're going to have programs like the General System of Preferences. We're going to help developing countries. Duties were coming down. Now let's look at, and now we have a change today, but let's look at what the tariff regime has been like in the history of the United States. The next page. This is average duty rates in the United States. Going back to the founding of the United States, tariffs were very, very, very high. They went up and down for many years. In 1930, we had the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and tariffs went up to 30 to 60%. Since then, since the Second World War, all of a sudden tariffs are coming down. Right now, the average rate in the United States is 2-3%. The vast majority of products through 2016 and through 2024 has been zero. You haven't worried about this unless you have certain products like textiles or merchandise subject to dumping or countervailing duties. Next. This is our trade. This is one of the reasons why President Trump decided he loves tariffs. Between 1950 and 1970, the U.S. trade balance was in balance. Exports were the same as imports. Trade boomed in the 70s until now. And now that's a good thing for India. It's a good thing for the United States. It's a good thing for the world. But as U.S. exports and imports increase dramatically, both imports and exports, we have an imbalance in trade where we have more imports coming in than merchandise is exported. And we have tremendous trade deficits for various countries, China being number one, but then also Vietnam and India, other Far Eastern countries, where the balance of trade, country by country, has been, we could say, bad for the United States in President Trump's world, but this is good for exporters from these countries, and we think it's good for the world economy. But there's a new way of looking at this, where this balance of trade is seen to be bad, and that's why one of the reasons tariffs are going on. Next, the federal revenue. You look, for years and years, the U.S. got revenue from tariffs. Then we had income tax in 1913, and now tariffs are right on top. Minuscule amount of revenue to the United States from tariffs. Even if tariffs went up to 100%, it still is not going to be a lot of revenue in the United States. Our tax system will be our revenue. the tariffs are going to hurt, but that's the way it's going to be, but it's not going to be major revenue. Finally, what's our trade policy today? Our trade policy has flip-flopped within the past month. We had Liberation Day, and then we had the pushback from Liberation Day. It's 10%, and we're going to find out where the United States really stands within the next 3 months. I'll turn it over to Dharmendra to talk about where we are today in tariffs.
Thank you, Ned, for giving the introduction. Tariffs in the United States has, especially of late and beginning from President Trump's first term itself, we started seeing a lot of new types of duties which were unheard of. Section 232 duty was one of them, which he initially imposed under National Security Act. But that was covering only few goods. Now it has expanded, continues to expand. Basically, we are going to speak the broad types of duties which are currently in place. There are three of them, broadly speaking. IPA, which is imposed under International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Then second is Section 232, National Security Act, and Section 301, which is to curb unfair trade practices. So let me begin with fentanyl IPA. So President Trump started his term targeting three countries, China, Canada, and Mexico. On China, he imposed initially 10% tariff under IPA, the International Emergency Economic Act, which he ratcheted up to 20% in March. Basically, this tariff can be imposed without taking consent from anyone. President has unilateral powers, no agency is involved. This tariff can continue forever, theoretically at least. So we'll see what happens going forward. As you know, China imposed going forward retaliatory tariff, and a lot of things happened, but we'll come to that later. Canada also, President Trump imposed 25% tariff under this fentanyl IPA, which was basically allegedly to curb imports of drugs and illegal aliens. That was the predicate based on which this tariff was imposed, with some exceptions on energy and potash products, which were at 10%. So both Canada and Mexico. Mexico also, the same set of IPA fentanyl was imposed, 25% on blanket, 25% on all imports, except potash and energy products, on which 10% was imposed. And there were some other exceptions like USMCA, eligible goods were exempt. As you know, there is this successor of NAFTA, USMCA, covering these three countries, three-country agreement. So some goods are covered there which are exempt from IPA fentanyl tariff. Now, let me go to the next slide. One of the things when he imposed fentanyl IPA, he removed a benefit that was previously in place regarding foreign trade zones. So people were depositing goods entering goods into foreign trade zones, and at the time of entry, the duty was crystallized, so that even if you took those goods out later on, you were if you entered goods prior to the imposition of duty, that was low duty was in place. But he removed that restriction, so now you cannot avoid duties by simply entering goods into FTZ prior to certain dates, because then upon removal, those duties will be charged if those duties are then in place at the time of withdrawal from FTZ. No drawbacks are allowed on IPA duties. So as you know, drawback principle that if you are using goods for production of domestic goods and then exporting, you are eligible for drawback of duties that you initially paid. But for IPA duties, no refunds are there. No drawback is there. Then IPA stacks with Section 301 duties, which is in place mostly on Chinese products, as you know, but 301 ambit is being expanded. USTR is in charge of doing some investigation based on which it is not inconceivable that India also going forward could be under the net of 301, not so far. Also, IPA, as I said, has no time limit. Now we come to a very important section, steel and aluminum tariffs imposed under Section 232 of Trade Expansion Act. As I said, these duties were initially imposed in 2018. And again, just like IPA is imposed, IPA fentanyl, of course, is limited to 3 countries, but you will see the next IPA, which is reciprocal tariff, that is imposed against globally, against all countries practically. Similarly, Section 232 duty is on product. The focus is product, and it is imposed blanket against all countries in the world. So a 25% duty was already in place on a number of steel products and 10% on aluminum products. What President Trump did, he carried forward those duties which were already existing, and then he added some more products and, more importantly, derivatives. So when initially Section 232 was imposed in 2018, the focus was on basic steel and aluminum products, not on their derivatives. Few derivatives were added during his first term also. But now the focus, it seems, has shifted to encompass more and more derivatives of steel and aluminum, so that any product which is containing steel and aluminum can potentially be subject to these Section 232 tariffs. But more specifically, there is a list of HTS headings. Those HTS headings, if your goods fall under those HTS headings, then they are subject to Section 232 duties. Breaking it down further, if those derivatives fall under Chapter 73 or Chapter 76, then 25% duty is payable on the entire value of the merchandise imported. But if your merchandise falls outside of Chapter 73 or Chapter 76, like Chapter 94, which covers furniture, then in those cases, the duty, 25% duty is payable only on the value of steel and aluminum contained in those goods, not on the full value of the merchandise. And that in turn brings into question the issue of valuation. How do you value? And we have a lot of creative strategies, how to value it in a manner that benefits you. Coming back to the broader issue of Section 232, this new animal of Section 232, which started in 2025, it has some unique aspects. So prior 232 had a provision for applying for exclusion, both general exclusion and specific exclusion, which means that countrywide he could exempt few countries totally from imposition of, and last time there were 8 or 9 countries that were exempt: Australia, Canada, Mexico, South Korea, Brazil, Argentina, EU, Japan, UK. At this time, no country is exempted. More importantly, he has removed the process of application for exclusion. Previously, based on national security considerations, and there were 2 or 3 other factors based on which some of the products were eligible from exclusion, which means that they were exempt from 232 duties. And there was a process involved. But at this time, there is no such process involved, which is very troubling. But we hope that going forward, it might change, and we have to keep an eye out for it. I think on this slide, what you are seeing mostly I already covered. But one important thing I'll point out is that on their entry summary, importers have to declare the country of smelt and pour for steel, and smelt and cast for aluminum, because those country of origin are important. Because on Russia, for example, in case of aluminum, the rate of duty is 200%. So it becomes very important. If the country of origin of melt and pour and smelt and cast is not declared on the entry summary, then the CBP can take an adverse view and impose the highest duty. So besides the broader issue of duty that we are discussing, there are a lot of procedural issues which we will not be discussing today. But those sometimes they become even more important than the substantive issues, in the sense that if you are not, you have to be mindful of a number of nuances when you are filling out the entry summary. There are a lot of new line items that will have to be created to properly report the value and duty of different items. If you do not do, then CBP can take an adverse view. Going forward, I think I covered most of the things that I already said here. one thing which I'll quickly note, just because a goods contain steel and aluminum, that does not mean that it will attract 232. It has to be one of the specified tariff, fall under one of the specified HTS headings. Then only it will attract duty. But guess what? People will try to shift or be more creative in trying to shift from specified headings to non-specified headings. And CBP is alert to this fact. CBP has already forewarned people that don't try to be very smart, because our penalty system is will take care of you if you are not taking reasonable care, which Ned alluded to. So you have to work in close coordination with your broker and your counsel to make sure that you are within the four corners of law. Now, next 232 duties recently announced is on automobile and automobile parts. Beginning April 3rd, duties have been imposed. 25% duty was imposed on automobile. And I immediately dialed my family. I was in India then. I called them. I said, buy the new car, which we have been talking about. And they immediately bought our new car, which was still, the price had gone up. But more troublingly, beginning May 3rd, 25% duty on auto parts have been imposed, and that has in turn spawned a lot of new issues, which again we will not be discussing today. But just to flag it, that it has become very concerning now. So again, a lot of tariff headings are there for auto parts, which attract this 25% duty. It is already in effect. Again, there is no drawback for payment of these duties. And these 232 tariffs, as I said, are in addition to other tariffs like MFN, the regular customs duty, then IPA 301, and we will be talking about stacking, what stacks, what does not stack. Now we come to a very important section, IPA reciprocal tariff. This is the tariff that was imposed allegedly on this Liberation Day, April 2nd, when President Trump announced a menu card type duty list, which read like, if you go to a restaurant, they give you a menu of items with different tariff rate. It varied from 10% to 50%. So that was, he imposed, and then he paused it for 90 days after 6-7 days. So currently, there is a pause on that duty, which I will show you, actually quickly show you. This is the duty I'm talking about. This is Annexure 1 to the reciprocal tariff. On India, the duty was 26%. On Pakistan, 29%. On China, 34%. It varied from 10% to 50% anywhere, this duty. But currently, this duty, which you're seeing right now, is on pause until July 9th. But it can, after that, who knows what will happen. So coming back to reciprocal IPA tariff, this tariff was imposed. The philosophy behind this tariff, as Ned was mentioning, was to bridge the gap of this trade imbalance, and creative arguments were brought up, and the formula that was used to arrive at the menu card I just showed you was something people are saying it was totally bogus, but we have to see how it plays out, because countries will be negotiating individually with Trump, and I'm sure there will be a lot of pushback on those numbers. So very importantly, what you're seeing on this screen is exclusions from reciprocal tariff. So if goods are subject, there are 8 or 9 listed exclusions to reciprocal tariff, which means that, for example, if goods are subject to steel and aluminum derivatives subject to 232 tariff, or subject to auto 232 tariff, then you do not have to pay reciprocal tariff. There are some more exceptions to reciprocal tariff. There are like informational materials, photographs, and all that, donations. Then upcoming, there 232 is expanding like wildfire. Currently, 232 investigations by Department of Commerce is taking place against copper products, pharma, semiconductors, lumber articles, critical minerals, electronics. And whenever these duties are imposed, maybe towards the end of the year, if the duty is actually imposed on these products, then they will not be subject to reciprocal tariff. That exception has already been provided here. Let me move forward. This card you already saw. Let me go to a more important slide. This we already talked about. Yes, this slide is very important. So, as I said, there are these 2 or 3 types of duties which are more important than others. IPA fentanyl, IPA reciprocal, Section 232 on aluminum and steel and their derivatives. And so how do they interact? Because once goods are imported, the question always is, are all of these duties applicable on those goods, or only some of them are applicable? So this slide gives you a broad view of what happens. There are 5 duties which are listed here, 232 duties, for example, auto parts. Let's take auto parts. So on auto parts and auto products, 25% duty is there. Now, if 232 auto tariff applies, then, and if it is coming, let's say, from Canada or Mexico, then no IPA fentanyl 25% is imposed on those goods. And similarly, no 232 25% duty on aluminum and steel will be simultaneously imposed on auto parts. If 232 duty on auto tariff applies on those goods. Second, in cases if on a product IPA fentanyl from Canada, Mexico applies on goods imported from those countries, then there is no simultaneous imposition of 232 duties on steel and aluminum contained in those products. So either it will be IPA fentanyl or 232 steel aluminum. But then if 232 steel 25% is applicable, then 232 aluminum still can apply. If a product is a combo product which contains both steel and aluminum, then both components will be subject to 232 25% tariff. And finally, if 25% auto applies, all other tariffs which are otherwise not listed, what I just discussed, such as MFN duty, the regular customs duty, 301 duty, China IPA fentanyl, which is 20%, and anti-dumping and countervailing duties, if applicable on those products, they all will stack together. So again, the devil is in details. You have to specifically look at a product from where it is coming, and then you have to evaluate carefully how much duty is applicable. So once again, this summary I am in a different form. If it is fentanyl IPA, then it is on China. If the goods are imported from China, then it is 20% IPA fentanyl. Mexico, Canada, if it is not under USMCA, then it is 25% generally and 10% on energy potash. Then if it is reciprocal IPA, then on China, it is 10% beginning today, actually. Otherwise, it was, as you know, 125%. Then on other countries also it is 10%, but paused until July 9th. After July 9th, this can go up to the menu card, which I showed. Then some products are excluded from reciprocal tariff IPA, which I showed you already. Now, if it is Section 232 duty, 25% on steel and aluminum derivatives and auto parts, if goods are coming from China, then it is 25%, 232 duty, and in addition, you have fentanyl duty, IPA duty of 20%. So it is 45% duty if it is steel products are coming from China today to United States, steel or aluminum. If steel and aluminum products or their derivatives or auto parts are coming from Mexico or Canada to US, then fentanyl IPA of 25% will apply, but no other duty will apply. So the net impact will be 25%. From any other country other than China or Mexico and Canada, if steel, aluminum derivatives and auto parts are coming today to United States, then the total impact will be only 25%. No fentanyl, no RET, IPA, etc. So this gives you a broad view of how, for example, an Indian exporter who is exporting to US market, he still has 20% advantage on these exports from China. Then let's go to Section 232, steel and aluminum imports of goods with steel and aluminum components. If it is coming from China, then it is 25% on steel component. Fentanyl is 20%, no IPA reciprocal tariff. And from any other country, it is 25% steel component. So here, the only benefit is that the 20% fentanyl IPA is not levied on any other country, only on China. And finally, Section 301, Section 201, which is safeguard duty, we did not talk about. Currently, Section 201 duty is applicable only on two products, solar and I think washing machine. Solar, a lot of action is taking place. Again, Section 201 duty is applicable on all countries around the world. Except for some countries have been accepted, but around 3/4 countries in the world are subject to Section 201 duty. So Section 301 duty, which is mostly on China today, Section 201 duty limited to two products on a majority of countries, anti-dumping duty, countervailing duty, regular customs duty. These duties stack with each other and stack with other Trump tariffs, which we discussed, like IPA, fentanyl, IPA, reciprocal, with the exceptions. You have to see basically which product we are talking about. And we have in-house, we have capability at JDLSK to take care of these variety of exceptions, which are all listed in Chapter 99 of US tariff. In that Chapter 99, it runs into 683 pages as we are speaking. This looks like a tariff book. And we have a massive spreadsheet which continues to be updated, where for any product imported from any country, we know we can identify the classification, and based on that classification, we can map out the exact quantity, the exact amount of duty, quantify the duty that is applicable on India or goods if corresponding goods are being imported from China or from any other country. So we can tell Indian exporters, where do you stand vis-a-vis your counterparts from other countries. So as you can see, based on my presentation, how and believe me, I have just touched the surface. I have not gone into a lot of details, but it is quite complicated to in a nutshell. So now I will hand it over to Ned to provide some insights on some of the creative and lawful mechanisms that we have, which we can.
Let's go right
suggest
to
to
page
all.
32, Dharmendra, the next page.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna, just kind of summarize what Dharmendra is saying. You have really complex duties that stack. The reciprocal duties, the auto duties, the steel duties, the aluminum duties, the fentanyl duties from China, dumping duties, 201. They stack, and you have to know how much you have to pay, and the importer of record's responsible. And there you have Charlene, as far as your customs broker. That's your first person to go to. And when it gets really complicated, then you go to us, or when there's strategies involved, you go to us. But let's talk about the strategy. Again, we talked about duty. Duty, importer of records responsible. Duty is based on three variables. It's based on the classification, it's based on the valuation, it's based on the origin. So let's start with classification. Different duty is applicable to different products depending on the classification. The steel derivatives or the auto derivatives are based on whether the products are classified in a particular harmonized tariff schedule subheading. There are 10,000 of these. You know that certain subheadings, it's not clear where there's a classification. For example, there's a subheading that says parts of automobiles, but maybe there's a more specific subheading that says clutches or mirrors. And the question is, what's the best classification? What's the correct classification? And depending on the classification, you may have a 10% reciprocal duty, or you may have a 25% auto part duty. So classification is critical to get the correct classification, to know what your duty is. And your classification, it has to be reasonable. You can't just flip-flop by telling us, well, let's get the lowest classification. That doesn't work. It has to be a reasonable classification, and you have to use reasonable care. And there's a lot of precedent by customs as to how merchandise is classified. So that's if you have a product. But you could tariff engineer. And there are two ways of tariff engineering. If I have something coming into the country and it's a subassembly, and if that subassembly is an auto part, I could break up that subassembly and have different inputs imported separately and do final assembly in the United States and possibly reduce my duty that way by having a final assembly in the United States. Or if I have a particular product that's subject, let's say, to a particular duty rate, I could put that product with other products, make a bigger subassembly or bigger final product, and maybe that final product is not subject to the duty. So when you have differentials in duty rates based on classifications, what you have to do is you have to get a reasonable classification, and then you have the possibility of legal, very legal tariff engineering, where you could break a product apart, or you combine a product together, or you could put something else on a product to get the classification that is not subject to duty. Right now, for example, we have zero duty on iPhones. We have 10% duty on the majority of products. We have 25% duty on auto parts or steel derivatives. So if I have an iPhone, I'm great. Or maybe I could put something else onto my iPhone. If I have a steel product derivative or an auto derivative, I'm not good because that's 25% compared to 10%. But then remember, your 10% could go up to over 25%. So you have to be very careful on the classification, how you tariff engineer, but this is doable if you're in this for the long term. That's classification. Next, valuation. And let's go there on to the next slide. Valuation, the basis of appraisement. Normally, merchandise is appraised, duty is based on the price from the buyer to the seller. So if I have from the seller to the buyer, if I have a company in India who's exporting to the United States, to an importer in the United States at $100, that's going to be where my 10% duty or my 25% duty is based on. But let's look at the company in India. Is that company in India, is that a trading company? Is that an agent? There's a way to get the appraisement based on what we call a first sale appraisement, where you have a manufacturer selling to a middleman who then sells to the importer. There, you could have your basis of appraisement based on your manufacturer's price to your middleman in India. And you have that if the goods are unequivocally destined for the United States on that sale, if it's a fair market value for that sale, and you have a sales price, you could have that. So if the factory sells to a middleman at $70 and the middleman sells to the United States at $100, right now you're probably paying duty on the $100, but if the transaction is structured correctly, you could be paying duty on the $70. Now, the easiest way, if this is going on, if you're right now or in the future, if you have an unrelated factory selling to an unrelated middleman, that's unequivocally destined for export to the United States, then you have the factory price to the middleman that can be used for appraised value. If it's related, it's a little bit more complex, but you have to make sure that the relationship didn't influence that price, and that price is at a fair market value. So even if you don't have a middleman right now, you could structure your transaction to break up your company, to have a factory, and then to have a middleman that could be related. It's complex. Again, if you're in it for the long term and you're paying 25% duty, you could save an incredible amount of duty by setting up a first sale appraisement. It's legal in the United States. It's been legal for many, many years. Many companies do this, but it's not simple. And if you're in it for the long term at a high duty rate of 25%, think about it. Next slide. Dharmendra. Okay. Another way, a buying agent. So same thing, when you have a three-tier transaction, rather than having a sale to my middleman, let's say I have a company in India, and the company in India could act as my buying agent in the United States. So I have a US company, the company in India is the buying agent who buys from factories, and there, the agent's commission, the markup that you pay this agent, is not going to be subject to duty. But again, the transaction has to be structured in a way that it meets the qualification that you're a bona fide buying agent in the United States. Look at the next page. And these are some of the activities that the agent could do. So what you're really doing is you're breaking up one company, creating either a middleman, sale, resale, or your mid company is a buying agent, and you're not paying duty on certain services, on the markup. And they're just, again, there are ways of doing this that are absolutely legal, and it's done all the time. Again, for the first 30 years of my career, when duty rates were high, I spent an incredible amount of time on first sale and buying agents. For the last 20 years, when duty rates are zero for most products, nobody cared. It's back. It's back to structuring transactions in a manner that saves you duty, and you do this when you have a 10% duty or a 25% duty or whatever the duty is going to be on India. Those are two major ways, but there are other ways of doing this. If you have royalties, there's a way potentially your royalty payment is not subject to the duty. Or if you're a company who is providing material inputs to the factory, and then you're buying from the factory, or the material inputs are provided by the company in the United States, maybe there's a way to reduce the duty, the value of those material inputs. So there are many, many strategies that could be used to save duty, which were used in the past 30, 40 years ago when you had high duty rates, and are back. For sale, buying agent are two of the major ways. Royalties are another way. Also, you could have where your foreign exporter, it could be your importer of record. There are ways of saving duty there. When you're dealing with a related company, where your manufacturer is a related company, you have to really look carefully to make sure that it's at a market price, but there are ways to prove a market price. Whether the profits are the same on the sale or the resale, where you could do a study on other comparable producers in India. There are ways of doing this, but it takes time, and it takes really the desire that you're going to be in the United States for a long time, and you're going to live through this tariff increase, and also you're going to have a competitive advantage. Because a lot of companies will not be doing this. They'll be paying the money. And the company who does the upfront work and gains the competitive advantage is going to prosper in the long run. These duties aren't going to go away. We're saying right now it's 10%, it's a pause, it's 25%. We believe the 10%, it may or may not go up. There's going to be a lot of negotiations with various countries. But I think what we're saying is that the duty is going to stay. Remember, Trump won. You had the 232 duty on steel and aluminum. It stayed through Biden. And now we're on Trump again. This 10% duty, it may stay forever. The 25% duty on autos and steel, it may stay as long as it's not crazy. Like the 145% against China, it could be here for a long time. Your government's going to be negotiating, but we don't know the results of the negotiation, but we're going to assume that it's going to be an equilibrium where we could live with it and you could live with it. And in that sense, The question is, are you going to be doing better than your competitors? Okay, the final duty saving, and we've been involved with a lot of Indian cases, is the country of origin, where you could get inputs from various other countries, but if the final production is done in India, India will be the country of origin. Also, if you have Indian inputs and you send it to another country for further processing, then the question is it going to get the duty rate of the other country that are in India? Right now, it really only matters China and the rest of the world. But we don't know what's going to happen in July if there are going to be different duty rates for different countries. And if that's the case, then origin is going to become a lot more important. So right now, it's classification, for the long term. It's valuation, and that's really going to be critical because you're going to have duty. And origin could become very important if there are different rates for different countries. It's a long haul, but again, when we're talking about exporters from India, we think exporters from India right now have an advantage for the long haul if they want to take advantage of it. If they're willing to put the work in, realize the US, we believe, is going to continue to be a good market, and India may have the advantage over other countries for a wide variety of geopolitical reasons.
If I can add very quickly to what Ned said, although China was kind of hammered very badly with this 145% IPA tariff, and of course it has been paused, but at that time no one knew it was going to be paused. But the most proactive set of exporters we have seen recently are Chinese. They are taking our advice seriously. We have had certainly webinars with them also, and majority of our work currently surprisingly involves Chinese. We thought that probably they will give up. No, they have not given up. So the lesson for Indian exporters is that you have to be really proactive. I mean, if you want to really capture the displacement, I mean, China will be displaced to some extent, of course, from the US market based on so many other factors, including slew of anti-dumping, countervailing duties and all that. But you have to be really proactively capture that space, and you have to move fast in order to take advantage of the situation. And the strategies, as Ned said, vary from product to product. I just wanted to throw that up, so that people should not think that other exporters are not active. They are super active at this point.
This is
Okay.
fascinating. I mean, I have heard of tech strategies or business strategies. Today is the first time I'm hearing duty strategies. So this is absolutely amazing. The way I see it is that if you say that Chinese companies are proactively looking at how to build that strategy into their model, I strongly suggest that the Indian companies looking into the US market should definitely work on that strategies and structure their deal making through buying agencies or howsoever Ned has explained much in advance, so that as you said, comparatively India has an advantage. Uh, you know, take it rather than taking care of the wounds earlier. How about if you are in a preventive medicine and then you don't get sick? I mean to say that you are already pricing it right and taking the advantage of it. So this is fascinating, Ned. Beautifully summarized. I have never thought of it, and I loved it.
Okay.
Lovely, lovely.
Now you can hear from Charlene, who
Yeah.
talks about the nuts and bolts and getting your merchandise into the country, which is not simple.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Everyone, whatever you have heard, I want to say that write your queries in the chat box, whatever is coming to your mind. And what I'm about to say is very important. Very important. Charlene, Ned, Dharmender, they are, deep experts. And I tell you, if I call Dharmender outside of this call, of this webinar, or Ned, and say, I need to build my strategy I promise you, you're getting an invoice from them $900 to $1,000 an hour. So this is your time. Ask any question under the sun related with tariffs between US and India. And this is your time meant for you. So well utilize it. Ask questions and get your queries solved. So up next we have the expert speaker Charlene Riley. Charlene, I invite you to introduce yourself and share your insights as well.
Thanks, Naveen. Thanks, everyone. My name's Charlene Riley. I'm from J.W. Allen. I've been working in customs brokerage since 1987. I've also been president of the New York, New Jersey Broker Association. I've been very involved with the National Association through various committees. So I have a pretty wealth of knowledge of the industry going forward. So it's, GDLSK, Ned, and Domer, they really covered a lot in the presentation. So as a customs broker, kind of view us as we are your central hub to knowledge of bringing imports into the U.S. We're going to be the ones looking at reviewing your documentation, and many of the items in the Customs 101 that presented, that he brought up, such as the customs bond, which is required for all shipments coming to the U.S., as Ned said. I just like to say that that's kind of view that as an insurance policy on behalf of the U.S. government, so that if anything should go awry with their shipment somewhere along the line, Customs has somebody to go against. So that is extremely important. I would say that before you even think about importing to the U.S. or selling to someone in the U.S., even if you are not the importer record, it is important for you to recognize the challenges of the importer record in the U.S. in providing the classification, valuation, country of origin to U.S. Customs. Because many times the people that at IR, if they are in the U.S., they'll go be relying on your information that you supply to them. It is critical that that information is correct. So what I'm trying to really project is that it is a total team effort on bringing product into the U.S. And you have your experts, such as GLSK, Naveen, you have everybody that you should really reach out to should you think about selling to anybody in the U.S. And really, even more important is if you are thinking about having your terms of sale being DDP, now you will also take on additional responsibility. And you really have to understand what those responsibilities are under U.S. law. So in essence, please reach out to us. There's a lot that goes on with reasonable care. There's a lot that we have. I mean, as Ned said, every day we're getting multiple messages from Customs. In the morning we wake up, we see a message saying that there might be some information on trade issues coming from India. On the afternoon, whatever information was in the morning, it could change in the afternoon. So we are constantly receiving messages. I would say that as somebody from India, if you can have access to any kind of international information, again, rely on brokers and attorneys in the US to be able to keep up. As of yesterday, I believe I saw where the couple of smaller companies actually did take the administration to court on the CIT, saying that some of the tariffs are illegal, that the administration cannot just put tariffs on, that it's really the act of Congress that's required. So that's going to play through the courts. But this is all vital information that you need to determine your competitiveness in the marketplace. And I think that there is a lot of opportunities for Indian companies in the future, whether it's Democratic, Republican parties in the U.S., everybody is in sync as far as fighting China and the amount of imports that they're coming into the U.S. Another important issue is that e-commerce from China. There was a recent administration, EO, basically stopping under $800 value shipments coming to the U.S. They now have to go through regular mechanisms, customs reporting mechanisms. But not every other country in the world has to do that. So that is also a better advantage for India if it wishes to go that route. And again, looking at somebody for the GDLSK people to help you set up on on that particular e-commerce platform, it could be beneficial. So what I would say in essence of time, because I know we like to be able to have some Q&A, I will put my contact information in the chat box. If you have any information in the future that you would like to contact me, please do.
Wonderful, Charlene. Thank you so much. Yes, anybody who may have questions, you can reach out to Charlene. You can reach out to me, and of course, I think the first thing you should do is to reach out to Mr. Unnikrishnan, and then let Mr. Unnikrishnan's department make the connection with us. But I want to come back to Dharmendra sir. Everybody please start to write your queries, your questions in the chat box. But just to jumpstart this conversation in a Q&A format, my first thing will be, I'm directing it, I'm just initiating it, taking this liberty of running this program. So using my first right, Dharmendra sir, you said something very interesting. Now I'm going to build something on top of it. You said you were in India and you asked your family member to buy a car immediately. Now you have that foresight and you could see, man, let's save some money, guys, buy me a car. I couldn't do that. So I'm suffering for what I did not know. Now, representing all the community at FIO, all the FIO members right now, from their side, I'm going to ask you this question. Now, you had that foresight, you could see, and I know there are thousands of products, and there are possibilities for those products in comparison to when we put against China, that these are the areas where Indian exporters can do very well. If I were to ask Ned and you specifically that what sectors you will hit first, you save money on car. Now, if Indian exporters were to make money, now there is a lot to consume here. If I say you were to start a business, and I give you 10 products, that's like Jeff Bezos thought of 5 products to start Amazon. Then what are the product categories you will pick today, or what sectors you will hit today where we can again compete against China the best possible way?
Okay, so I mean, there is, of course, we are aware of that there are some sectors where China is definitely getting displaced or has already been displaced. By whom, I don't know, but there is a space being created at a minimum, not displacement, but space is being created because of exit of China. I mean, one product I can name, which Ned also mentioned in his toys, for example. Definitely, that is one of the products. There are some medicines, antiviral, I know, and there are some textile products. But again, if you're not in that business, I'm not going to advise someone to start a business just to enter that market. That advice I will not give.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing, we're right now, once the China tariffs came down to 10%, and I don't think they're going to go up, I don't think the 10% is going to have a major differential. Let's say, take toys, for example. I think toys, the 10% is not going to move the toy industry from China to India. But traditionally, where the industries have gone to India, you get into your traditional anti-dumping and countervailing duties. And these are where, the tariff rates are 200, 300%. And if you have any, again, when you're at 10% or 25% for, aluminum or steel or autos is worldwide. China's down to 10% on everything else, plus the 20% fentanyl. But look at your dumping and countervailing duties. Solar is one, where you have solar on China, the rates are in the 200%. Now you have the CMTV countries as high. So India has, the ability to bring solar in right now. And there are other products like this. The other area where India has a tremendous advantage is UFLIPA, the forced labor, where they've hit a lot of Chinese companies for forced labor in certain industries. A lot of textiles, other products. Again, India doesn't have the forced labor issue. So it's basically studying what's going on in the past, a lot of dumping and countervailing duties where India could come in with different industries, but knowing for the future it's going to be volatile and there's going to be an anti-Chinese sentiment in the United States. And the Indian companies, if you have the 25% or 10% duty, it could be worldwide, but you could put more money, keep more money rather than give all that money to the United States government.
One thing,
Lovely.
Ned,
That summarizes very well. Yes, Devinder sir.
Ned raised an interesting point, and specifically he mentioned about solar, where we have a lot of clients. One thing which I have noted somewhat with some disappointment is that, especially including Indian exporters and Indian producers, they don't are so willing or forthright in investing in what we call as pre-audit. So we try to prep up companies where we anticipate some anti-dumping investigation, etc., is going on, and we make them bulletproof to face these investigations.
I'm gonna stop you on that. These are for big companies who want to pay a lot of legal fees, or have the ability to pay legal fees. And there's really a differentiation here. We represent, massive companies with a lot of money who are willing to pay us to do a tremendous amount of work before. Then you have smaller or medium-sized businesses who have different needs. We believe that because when you have duty, everybody now has a need. If you want to stay in the United States for a long time, for a first sale program or a buying commission program, you're going to save X amount of dollars over the long term. And you could figure out what your saving is, knowing that the investment in legal fees is going to be significantly less. And you have to make that decision yourself as to what you're willing to pay, knowing what your return is going to be. Another very important point that Dharmendra made, and it may have just passed over, documentation. We could say from now and forever that this is what your duty rate's going to be. If it's an Indian price, you could show origin or on first sale or whatever. If you can't document that to the satisfaction of U.S. Customs, you're dead. So documentation is critical. And I guess when we're talking about, pre the audit, it's everybody has to have their documents in place when you're involved in any possible duty saving program. It's not just, I'm going to have a program. It's having the program, having the documents, and making sure the program is going to pass a customs audit.
Right. So Ned again raised a good point. You see, CBP is now aware that because of these duty rates ratcheting up, people are adopting creative means, and some of those creative means may not pass the legal muster. So CBP's enforcement wing has become super active. They have their all four eyes, and they're looking around for deficient documents, for example. I mean, that is the easiest thing they can catch on a document, that is on the face of the document. And as I said, if your document is not containing the necessary information, CBP can draw an adverse inference. And the consequence of that adverse inference could be you may be rudely surprised by millions of dollars or whatever amount of duty which you should never have had to pay, but for some due care that you did not take in time.
Wonderful. Okay. So thank you, sir. And then thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Ned.
Mr.
Let's
Naveen,
get into the Q&A session.
Mr. Naveen, before going to Q&A, one doubt I just want to get it
Sure,
clarified related to rules of origin criteria. Do we have any minimum value addition requirement as far as rules of origin is concerned for
No.
US? Why I'm asking specifically, this is related to related to UAE. In fact, UAE, if you have just a modification in packing, you can call it as made in UAE and you get a certificate origin. So if there are a possibility, as a country like China is having higher rates, they can bring it here in UAE, pack it, repack it, and send it. So how you will, when goods comes to China, US, how you are going to identify that? Or what kind of certification? In fact, presently there is no certificate origin specifically for US market.
No,
general certification, which chambers being issued. That is not any valid. It's not a valid document as far as customs are concerned. So what documentation we can expect to
U.S.
be asked?
origin is based on a substantial, we call a substantial transformation test, where the merchandise is substantially transformed in a particular country. It's somewhat of a subjective test, but there's a lot of U.S. precedent for certain products, whether a certain processing operation is going to confer origin. It's based on a wide variety of factors. You could get a certificate from the government, from a chamber. That's not going to do it. The key there is documentation. The key there is knowing that this processing step is sufficient to confer origin, and then to have the documentation to confirm that you actually did the processing in India. So again, getting a certificate, a particular, there's no per se value added rule. Of course, the more value added, the better, but it's substantial transformation and in-house documentation, product by product. For better or worse, that's our system.
So that you can back me up on this. So this is much different than 20 years ago, where people used to have GSP certificates with the country of origin that had the
Correct.
value on there, and that used to be accepted, but that's no longer the case.
Well, we're not talking GSP now. We're talking GSP is another situation. If GSP is ever going to come back, and for India, probably no. But we're talking origin when you want to say this is Indian origin because India has a lower duty rate than another country, let's say China, and this is for dumping purposes. This is for classification purposes, for origin purposes. It's going to be substantial transformation is what the rule is. And there are a lot of different origin in the United States, a lot of different origin issues. Very important issue.
I was asked this question recently by one of my friends who is additional secretary in the Department of Commerce in India also. And I think, Ned, you would agree with me that the country of origin or substantial transformation, this also will depend on the context in which we are talking about it. For example, if it is a circumvention inquiry, about which we did not talk today, then the manner in which substantial transformation is implemented will be different than a regular case. And the department has a lot of other tests or flexibility.
It's different origin for different laws.
Exactly.
Customs country of origin is one law, anti-dumping country of origin is another law, anti-dumping circumvention is another law. If you had a GSP program where you're getting down to zero, that's another law. So again, very, very complex in the United States, but substantial transformation, is the key, but then there are different complexities depending upon what law you're dealing with.
All right. Okay. Well, guys, in the paucity of time, let's get into some Q&A sessions by the, there are questions coming up from the few members. So let me go over those and address those Q&As, right? So Kunal Sharma is asking, are medical linen products like hospital bed sheets, gowns, and drapes currently under Section 301 or other punitive tariffs in the US? If yes, what exemptions or reclassifications can we explore?
You're getting into a very technical question on a particular product. We'd have to look it up. 301 right now is just China. So the question is, are these exempt from the reciprocal tariffs the way, iPhones are exempt? The problem is there's so many different products. We're thousands of products. We can't give you that answer off the top of our head. For certain products, we can if we've had the issue with a client. For other products, we have to go look it up because we want to get it right. And that's
and also just by the name of the product, it is harder to say. There will be HTS heading. These 301 duties, etc. There are specified HTS headings. So a product which you mentioned, linen or whatever, it can be spread over different tariff headings. Some of those tariff headings may be subject to, and some of them may not be subject to. So we have to know the exact product.
Got it. Now, next question, Sriram Joshi is asking, I want to export Incense cones. I mean, he has given HSN code against. Again, it is a very specific one from India to US. My product is completely eco-friendly and has zero chemicals used during production. Which documents are required for such products?
I mean, I'd almost ask Charlene, are there any particular
Well,
documents for this product? You have to look it
eh,
up product by product.
again, we anytime somebody says specific product information, we need to be able to go to the tariff book and to be able to figure out what's needed. I mean, off the top, everybody needs to have a commercial invoice. Everybody needs to have a pack list. You need to have a bill of lading. And then if there's any other, there could be other government agencies that also might be, that your product might be covered by. Which in the US, there's more than 40 other government agencies that can have bearing on your product coming into the US.
Now, next question. Let's go to the next question. And that is Rashmi is asking, I'm reaching out to seek your guidance regarding the import of artificial quartz slabs from India to US. Currently, these products are subjected to anti-dumping and countervailing duties. While some of our importers use a bond that exempts them from paying these duties upfront, a few of our smaller importers are hesitant or unwilling to use such a bond. Could you kindly advise if there are any alternative solutions or procedures that would allow these smaller importers to continue importing without facing the full impact of these duties?
Look, I'm assuming you're talking about a situation where you have anti-dumping and countervailing duties on quartz for certain countries, and you could bring them into the United States. You could certify that they're not subject to the dumping order, but when you certify, you have to have a bond. There is nothing, that's the US system. And the bond could be expensive, and you may have to put the importer may have to put collateral down. There's nothing we could do about that. We could look product by product as to whether it really does need a bond of this amount. If the bond is too high, maybe we could go to customs and try to convince them that the bond should be lower. But again, it's very specific, and we can't give you a general answer, but we can say that there's an absolute bonding requirement that everything that's being brought into the United States.
And the importers obtain those bonds usually through the broker.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a quick question here to all three of you. For a company that is based out of India, and and if they want to, let's say they want to, they're selling here in the US market, but now they don't want to, or they want to keep their inventory here. So by becoming a US company, or by not becoming a US company, but holding their inventory here, does that kind of a strategy by forming a company here or not can help them in these duties, and if they are, for example, don't have a company here, but they are selling in the US market, can they become the importer on record?
Yeah. Look, all different strategies. A foreign company can be importer of record. So right now, that's the law in the United States. You can be importer of record. Usually, if a foreign company is importer of record, the surety company is going to require collateral to the amount of the bond, and it's going to be very high. And there you could have, first sale with the foreign company being importer of record, or the foreign company could set up a U.S. subsidiary as importer of record. You could have the price from the foreign company to the U.S. subsidiary as the entered value, and the U.S. subsidiary resell at a higher price. That's one strategy. Having the inventory in the United States, but there you have, the costs of setting up a U.S. company, the inventory carrying costs in the United States, costs of doing business in the United States. But many companies have done that strategy. And really, it's company by company which strategy works. In fact, for several companies, we give them kind of a smorgasbord. Okay, there are 4 or 5 different ways to do business, and you have to tell us which way works depending upon how you want to do your business, your tax considerations, your people considerations, and we'll tell you what the duty savings could be from one way to another. For many companies, setting up a U.S. company is good. For many companies, it's not good. But again, it's product by product, company by company.
Wow. All right. Guys, thank you, Ned. And there are 13 more questions and there are 14. It keeps on adding up, but we have very limited time, guys. I did not anticipate we are going to go to 1.5 hours, but I guess we can go to 3 hours, the way it seems
No.
like, right? Oh, so, Mr. Unikrishnan, sir, first of all, I would take your guidance. We can you know end the session now. But before I do that, I would love to invite the council trade at the Indian consulate in New York, very dynamic Mr. Manish Kulhadi, from New York City, to just give his remarks on what he sees is happening, and that will be good to hear from him. Manishji, you are there? Manishji? All right. Okay. I guess Manishji is not there.
Yes, Navinji, I'm
And
there. Yeah,
oh, you are there. Oh,
I'm
wonderful.
there. I'm
Okay.
there.
Here we have a very dynamic Mr. Manish Koladi, is a consul trade at Consulate General of India in New York. Sir, your words will carry a lot of meaning here.
Sure, sure. I'm just allowing my camera so that people can see me. So, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think there is some issue with the camera. Um,
No worries.
yes, I'd like to say thanks to FIEO Entry India and to organize this session. I think it was a learning experience for me too. Although I can say that means I can understand the customs part, I can understand the tariff part, but a big thanks to the experts who have not only means allowed or who have not only made us more knowledgeable in the sense that how this tariff situation will work and how can we actually channelize this into something positive in that way. So I would like to say that yes, we can read about tariffs, we can see the orders which are coming out, but hats off to all the experts. You have decoded tariffs in such a way that you have shown the experts how can they plan their exports, and also most importantly you have given them a belief that they should not fear of tariffs when they are trading with us. So big thanks to all of you. uh, as I said, that it is also a learning experience for me because I have seen the orders, but the way they have shown their presentation, the experts, I can see most of the tariff situation and I can understand it better now. So big thanks to Naveen Pathakji for bringing such experts. Now, I would like to say to the Indian exporters that yes, because of uncertainties, because of little confusion in the start, everyone is concerned. But I would say that you should be very positive, and I will give the situations or I will give the reasons why should you should be positive. Although experts have already described that, but I will tell you few of the factors which makes or which should make you positive. One of the situation is that geopolitical situation, if you can understand that, so it is not against India, it is in fact you can take advantage of the situation here. The second thing I would like to mention particularly about the US is that the current trend suggests that there is a very important economic partnership being built between India and the US, and that is being built from the last few years. And I can see a very good future of this economic partnership in coming days. If you remember that our prime minister, when our prime minister was here and he had a meeting with President Trump, they 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 indicated that the trade amount or the trade figure should go up to 500 billion. So you can see that the top leadership wants the economic engagement between India and the US, and there the role of all of you as exporters will come into picture. I would also say that the market of the US, that they want to have diversity, or they want to have more supplier countries, and that is where your opportunity is, and you should think it as in a positive way. And I would say that US market is very big. It is having a space for every country, for every exporter, for every supplier. Now, I would also say that all these factors are there, but US market is also about quality. It appreciates quality. So if your products are qualitative, you will find the market. But if your products are not qualitative, all these factors or all those reasons which I've mentioned you, that will be of no use. The second thing is that US is very serious about environmental issues. US is very serious about the issues like child labor, and I think one of the experts rightly said that where you can have advantage over other countries, that India is not means India takes these issues seriously, and their products are not coming from the factories where we, for example, having child labor. So there also you are having advantage. I can see that advantage in the textile sector. India is doing good. India will do good. So the exporters which are in these sectors or these industries, they should be thinking about the US market. And and most important thing is that US also appreciates the supply time or the quality in the shipping. So I would say that yes, even if you get orders, don't over promise, or don't be clear in your supply time. For example, I've seen many disputes coming to our office where the US based importer is saying yes, the products are good, but they promised us to give in 70 days, 80 days, 90 days, but we are still waiting. 120 days have been over. So just keep in mind that if you want to say it will take 100 days, don't promise them that it will be coming in 60 days. It's creating a bad image in that sense, and they will not give business to you. So I would request you all that be clear. They appreciate clarity. This country appreciates clarity in that way. Don't treat it as any other market in the world. So if you can ensure these things, I think you are having a very good market. And with all these factors, I think you should be positive. And there, I would again I would like to thank Naveen Patak ji, because and I would like to have his promise that you should keep on organizing these webinars. These are very helpful for the exporters. In fact, if you're doing it, for example, in 2 months, you should do it monthly, I would say, because it is really helpful to all. And the way or the quality of the experts you have brought in, it is giving a clarity in the minds of exporters, and we all need that in this time. So again, I would like to say thanks to all. From the consulate side, I can assure every Indian exporter or all the participants that whatever you need the HSN code wise buyers or the importers of the US. You need to connect with someone. You need to have meetings with someone. You want to come here and display your products in the trade shows. That we will take care. We are partners of Indian exporters in that way, and whatever assistance consulate can provide, it will provide. That is our promise. So that is all from the consulate side. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So, guys, I know there are more questions and there is more interest, but consider the time frame. We have to wrap it up now. I know Sumit, Heather, Vikas, and there are many experts who are asking these questions. Ratnesh, Abhijit, Abhishek, Ganhari. So my sincerest apologies, guys. Time is of essence here. So I will wrap it up now. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Ned. And thank you, Dharmender, uh, for being so patient, and then you explained it very, very well. Now I do Dharmendra, do you want to spend 30 seconds in, if these companies want to reach out to GDLSK, how can they engage you or Ned going forward?
Thank you, Naveen.
Why don't Dharmendra and I, why don't we discuss the most efficient way of doing this? Because there's going to be a lot of questions that are similar. Then we have particular products, but I think we have, the four of us here, we're a team, and we have to do it as a team in an efficient way because we have so many questions from so many people, and there has to be a good way for us to do all this. That's
Lovely.
built to the companies and to us.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I mean, absolutely. Maybe if there are some frequently asked questions that
Right.
GDLSK can prepare. So, as a part of the proceedings with this video, and if you permit me to use your presentation, depending on what your company policy is, um, I can um, I can put together everything in one pager and on a portal and send it to everyone. So, howsoever you think it can be done, just let me know, and then these questions can be addressed as a part of FAQ, and we can take upon that. So, it's your call. And
No,
Charlene, we can do the same thing: an FAQ from your side, an FAQ from um, GDLSK, and that way we can proceed it further. Ned, if that is okay with you,
no,
we can do
I
that.
think that's great. I think if we could somehow figure out a portal or to figure out a way to make this efficient for everybody, it's a great beginning for, I don't know how many people are on the call, but there are a lot. And, frankly, if
I
we got questions from 100 people, a lot of them are going to be the same. So let's try to figure out a way to make it efficient and to continue working together for this entire group. It's a great idea.
I mean,
Oh, that's great. That's great. Mr. Unikrishnan, sir, do you think is that's a fair idea to take it forward?
Yeah, thank you very much. It should be very useful and very informative. I'm sure that it will help all of us in understanding much more. Kindly take initiative of doing that.
Oh, so great. So I think that's the best way to take it forward. Ned, great idea. I love it. And so
And I
everyone
want
whose questions we could not address, don't worry, your questions will be addressed in one way or the other, but FAQs will come your way. So I want to thank you, Manishji, for being so kind, and on a very short notice you joined it, and your words carry a lot of weightage here. With half a billion dollar, $500 billion, half a trillion dollar kind of the size of amount of business that US and India wants to do, and through that a treaty which will, I guess, by fall will be finalized. US and India, a lot of business to happen, and experts like Ned and Dharmender. Guys, I have seen Dharmender personally also, that how he has helped Indian exporters who's been challenged by the local companies here for anti-dumping. He has represented them from GDLSK and has won every case. So, because of the limited time, I did not say that. He recently won a case for Wintel, one of the largest Indian tile exporter from India. And
I'll,
fortunately, that's my client too. And all the thanks to Dharmender, who has been spearheading. And I trust you. You guys are in the safest hands with Dharmender
I
and
will
Ned
just
here, who
qualify.
did us
I
all.
I will just
So,
qualify
with that
our
said,
team. I mean, not personally me, our team.
yeah, but a team, yes, of course, it's a teamwork. So I want to say thanks from my side, and Manishji, Dharmender, Ned, and Charlene. Charlene, without you, nothing is moving out of the port. So whatever we say, whatever we strategize, nothing works without you. Girl, your insight will become a cherry on the top. Without that, there is no taste to it, right? So
Yes,
we
yeah.
will prepare for you with FAQs all put together as a team. Will work on it, structure it up, create as a part of the proceedings, and with this video. And if Dharmender and Ned allows or share that presentation, I'll make the presentation of that part. Whatever slides you want to take off, you can, and we'll share with the listeners here, and that will be very, very helpful to FIO. And I tell you, FIO is planning for a visit, and if that works out, we'll set up a meeting with Ned and Dharmendra also. So It will be great going forward. I'm all excited. So thank you guys from my side. I'm glad for your business setup, for your warehousing, for trucking, for US customs. I mean, of course, Charlene is here. The US India Collaborative Corridor that is coming on 16th May. Guys, you have an office in America, and it is your office. Use it the way you want to. I give you all the power that you want to do business in India, in the US, and succeed. With that said, it's bye from my side. Unikrishnan sir, if you want to say a few words, you
I
can,
think
and then we'll let you.
Manishji want to speak. He raised his hands.
Yes.
Manishji?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Naveenji, for giving the information. In fact, when you were saying about the anti-dumping duty and what Dharmenderji and his team has done for the company, means I would like to request in that sense that if their office can provide some details about the commodities on which means there are petitions for anti-dumping or the countervailing duty. I'm not asking the details about the companies, but maybe as a product, so that consulate can also see from that angle, and maybe we can contact the Ministry of Commerce from India to take up the issues when they discuss it with the US counterparts. So that would be very helpful.
Yeah, you can, Manish. You're from the customs department, I guess. Oh, very
Yeah,
good.
from the
Okay, very good. I mean, you can send us an email. I think it will be more efficient
okay.
to copying Naveen, other people.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I'll contact Naveenji to basically get your contact. Thank you.
yeah.
All right. Okay.
So
Well,
thank you,
Unikrishnan sir,
Manishji,
thank you
for
so much.
joining, and we look forward. In fact, we are also planning to come on July. So we want Manishji's and Naveenji's help for making it success. I already written a mail also. I'll be in touch with both of you and see how we can make it success. And let me thank all the panelists for giving very wonderful presentation and very fruitful discussion. We look forward for more interaction and useful inputs on this in this discussion. Thank you all once again.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.